Good evening, everybody. It's Captive Audience with Don Anderson and Sunny Danforth here today. Welcome aboard to yet another wonderful Wednesday. What say you, Sunny?
Register to vote. See my name? See my name down there? Register to
Well,
vote.
I like
Good to
it.
see you, Don.
All right, absolutely. Here we go again. So once again, well, every time we get together, it's like another monumentally insane thing has happened. I mean, think to yourself, we haven't had a presidential, assassination attempt since what? Ronald Reagan back in 84, something like that, 85. And now we got two in 2 weeks. It's utterly unbelievable. Before but launching into a commentary around that, I just wanted to make one quick point. This is not, I don't want to claim the creativity having thought of this myself. I heard from a radio talk show host this morning, but I thought it was such an excellent point. I just wanted to make it. He said, consider this. In the Ukraine, there's been over somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million people killed over the past couple of years. And there's no protests in the street. There's no university eruptions. There's nothing around all these Ukrainians losing their lives. And yet, how many, we're talking of the thousands of people have been killed over Palestine. And there's protests in streets all over the place. You got to ask yourself, what gives? Why the differential in treatment between these two conflicts? So I think we will know the answers to that. So we'll let that rest for now. And let's just hop into this assassination attempt because it's absolutely, it's just incredulous. The last one was incredible enough, but here's a guy who makes $36,000 a year, who's got access to travel to Afghanistan, Ukraine, Iraq, Iran. He's appearing in all kinds of publications. He's been in news sources. You got to ask yourself, and we're supposed to believe this is a solo gunman. This is maybe even more incredible than a 19-year-old getting within 200 yards of a president to take a shot. And he gets access to the president's golf course, and it happens to be at a time when he's going through when it's an unscheduled golf outing. How does that happen? It's just unbelievable. I'll just, your thoughts, Sunny?
Well, I'll tell you. And then I was reading a story today. Well, actually, I guess it was on Coffee and COVID. I was reading that this morning, and it mentioned, I don't know if it was there or somewhere else. I did a lot of reading today, that the golf course was actually closed for the season. It hadn't opened yet. So there was nobody else. That tells you it's an inside job. That to me, because it's not like, oh yeah, he just goes there all the time and there was no people to catch this guy. And I was just right now we are competing with Donald Trump's rally. So there's like going to be nobody watching us live because they're watching Trump's rally, unless they're doing both of them. Because right before coming in here, I was watching Trump's rally. And he said, he says, kudos to the woman who saw this guy running and getting in a car and following him and taking a picture of his license. Something didn't seem right. And
That's pretty impressive.
It is
That's
impressive.
pretty impressive. Yeah, that she caught on that and then had the courage to act on that.
Yes.
Kudos to her.
This is not a lone person, in my opinion. This is not a person acting alone. And then I have a story on here somewhere that he has been on the FBI's radar since 2022.
Yeah.
His shooter has been on Homeland Security's radar in 2022.
So here's a guy he's traveling in and out of these countries. How do you get the passports? How do you get the weapons? How do you get GoPro? How do you get all that stuff when he's living on an income that's below the poverty line? It's like $36,000 a year.
Right.
There's just no way that this happens without some assistance.
But I think he was a headhunter because he was recruiting for Ukraine, bringing people from other nations to fight in Ukraine. So I isn't that what they call a hedge hunter or a headhunter?
Well, we used to think those were corporate recruiters, but I guess that term is.
I mean, maybe okay.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just unreal. And they basically normalized assassination attempts of the president. And here's the
Mhm.
thing, and there's a couple other factoids about this. Why aren't there any assassination attempts the other direction? Why are they always just in one direction? It certainly seems, at least from a public persona perspective, that the Democratic Party has been essentially calling for this for the last 6 years. You call somebody a Nazi, you say somebody's anti-democratic, you call them all these names year after year after year. You're eventually going to stir up some nut jobs.
Yeah.
Um, and that would be just the kind that walking out the street and try something, which clearly this person is not one of those. This is something I wish it was. I wish I could say it was just some nut job off the street, but to have that kind of planning, and he spent the night there overnight. On top of that, I understand, camped out there
Yes, he
overnight.
was there a long time. And
Yeah.
that's where it's very planned. I
Mhm.
mean, not just very planned, but he knew that the president was coming there. And I feel that there is a mole inside the Secret Service, inside Trump's inner circle somewhere that is feeding this. And it pisses me off. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
um,
No, it's
this was not
horrendous.
a coincidence.
No, it's the only conclusion that a logical person can reach. Now, here's the silver lining, which you might call the good news in a dark situation. It really shows you how desperate they are, that they're willing to do this. They tried the lawfare, they tried the lawsuits, they've thrown everything but the kitchen sink at this guy.
Yeah.
And they've even gotten rid of a presidential candidate, replaced him with another one. And the other one failed in the debates. So they're desperate enough that they're actually attempting to assassinate him. And there's no other logical conclusion that you could possibly reach, which tells you that they think he's winning, number one. And number two, it also tells you that they don't think they can cheat this thing. So I can't believe how, I'll call it raggedy, their attempts have become, because this is just very sloppy if you think about it. I mean, with the first attempt, they made sure that the assassin got killed immediately.
Yes.
Um, they made no such attempt here. So,
No,
although
no.
he
And
may
they
very
could have
well wind up getting
arrested.
Epstein.
They could have arrested the first guy ahead of time.
Right, right,
They
yeah.
they could have, because and the
Mhm.
police were trying to find him. The local police were trying to find him. They knew something was not right. And that
Mhm.
was there's so much that has come out about that first attempt,
Mhm.
and things were not kosher to how it was set up. So I'll tell you, thank goodness God is looking out for Trump. You know,
There's no other conclusion you can come to. There
yeah,
really isn't, and it looks like they made the mistake of doing it in Florida. And so now the DeSantis, thank goodness, is a state crime, and the state's taken up an investigation, which means we're likely to learn something, because clearly the feds have decided we're going to learn nothing. I don't know what progress we've gotten, if any, on the first attempt, but the feds are leading that one. And by the way, I'm just reading, they're only charging him with gun crime or something.
right. Two gun
The
crimes.
second two gun crimes. So what? Maximum of 15 years. It's just crazy. Whereas the state, it's a state crime. They can charge him with attempted murder, which is much more obvious and more appropriate. So
Yes.
yeah, the only thing
Yes.
that remains to see is can they protect the guy long enough to have a trial, or will he be Epsteined?
We are going to find out, Don. We're going to find out. But I was really glad to see and read about DeSantis also taking up this investigation, right, in an executive order that we are taking this investigation, and as they should, because it happened in their state. And like you just said, we're going to learn more about this and the outcome, the outcome of it. It's but
But on
it's,
a
when you're over the target, you will get attacked. And Trump is over the target 100%
he's
with
He's
everything.
more than over target, and it adds even more credibility. If you lack the ability to think of anything else, it adds more credibility to his candidacy. Why in the world would anyone put up with this? Um, he could walk away, and he's got plenty of money, and he could live a good life. He could even decide not to take the bribery, which I'm sure they would give him in a heartbeat, and probably already have
Sure.
offered. But he hasn't done that, nor has he walked away. when they're trying to kill him. Um,
Yeah,
the other sad observation I'll make about this is this is the stuff that happens in banana republics. Um,
absolutely.
and it's happening in the United States. And what have we come to where we can have disagreement on views and recognize that we have a system that's designed to manage that? Um, but it's the place where we are.
Sadly, it is where we are. And now, what used to be hidden is now in front of us. We have learned so much having Trump be our president and the subsequent what's happened afterwards with all the lawfare and I mean, they're just making up crimes
Right.
and digging up old statutes and trying to, let's see, they've made a temporary ban, lifted the statute of limitations so he could be tried. I mean, it's creative lawfare, and it's so sad that our justice system, people are willing to do this and to wreck our Constitution for one world order. That's what this is all about.
No, there's no
Making
question about it. Yeah. It's all about taking away your right or our right to select who
yes,
the leader of the country will be. And it's funny, the party that had primaries, that had competition in order to determine who would represent the party, is the ones being accused of being a dictator. Whereas in the other party, this is what. When was the last time they had a runoff? You got to go clear back to, I think, Hillary the first time or something. They
it would be a runoff, really. Well, you know, uh, Trump and Biden, but the real runoff was between Hillary and Trump. Absolutely.
right, yeah, and then on the Democratic side, what they ran Bernie out of there,
Yes,
didn't
they
let
did.
him get a chance. They didn't
Yeah.
let RFK even get on a ticket.
No.
Um, it's
It's
unbelievable.
amazing watching what the Democrats will do.
Right. Yeah. And whatever they accuse you of, they've already done that or in the process of doing it.
Uh,
I remember seeing something from a Taiwanese diplomat that said, whatever China's accusing us of, then that's what they're doing or about to do. And the same thing applies to the Democratic Party.
that's 100%. I concur with that statement because that is, they always tell us what they're doing. Their statements
Right. Yeah.
tell us what they're doing.
And here's one news item I thought I'd bring up because it might get buried uh, because this came out right when the shooting happened, and so it's one of these things that's getting buried. And that's this. There's been a whistleblower. Was it CBS or ABC that ran that debate? Um, in the
ABC.
event, ABC. So it was ABC. Whistleblower side ABC. Before the debate happened, this person signed an affidavit, FedExed it to himself, and then, so there's documented data, and then FedExed it to the government officials, basically talking about how this was a setup against Trump. And I'm just going to read off a couple of things to you because it's absolutely fascinating. So the whistleblower claimed that the Harris campaign insisted on secret conditions to which ABC agreed to. And here's just a few of them. They agreed that Trump would be aggressively fact checked and that Harris would not be fact checked at all. And we saw that play out. They said Harris would not be asked any questions about covering up for Joe's dementia, which is exactly what happened. There'd be no questions about her record as a California Attorney General, which, of course, there were none of those. Um, she received pre-debate sample questions that weren't exactly the questions, but they were close enough. And then she got other special accommodations like a special podium and promises of favorable split screen coverage. And Trump got none of these accommodations. And he's got tape recordings of these discussions being had. And this is all been filed. So it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see when and if that hits the fan. And you could sit there and watch and see that this is playing out. And you could surmise this stuff. All he's doing is providing evidence to support what incontrovertible evidence to support what we saw with our own eyes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so too, and they swear that nobody got the questions. And I never believed it in the first place. Ever, ever, ever.
So,
No.
no, and then when you combine that with I'm sure you've heard about the whole earpiece thing, where there's the
And
which
interestingly, She was wearing the same earrings when she was just interviewed on the, I don't know, they had a black group that was, she was doing an interview with, and then a Hispanic
Mhm.
one. And she's wearing those same earrings that
Oh,
look
it's
like microphone earrings. I don't
yeah,
know if they
and
are, but
it's
they sure look like it.
and the company that manufactured them said, "We can't definitively say they're ours, but they look pretty close." So,
Well, see,
and
there's news to me. I didn't know that, and but
uh,
I believe it. I believe it. That really looks. There's another conspiracy theory, and you know what? By golly, they're all coming true, Dawn.
well, they've shown they'll stoop to pretty much anything. So these things are
Yes.
pretty much easy to believe because of all the other things they've done. Anyone with any kind of a fair and balanced eye could see that it was 3-on-1, during the
Yeah.
debate. And for
Absolutely.
that reason alone, he won the debate. And the only way to define a winner is not based on what the pundits say, because the pundits have their own biases. They all have college degrees, and they all think you have to sound smooth and eloquent. And they're all looking for zippers and zappers and who got the less zing. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is not even what the Democrats watching the debate think. It's not what the Republicans watching the debate think. It's what the independents think, because that's what you're going after.
Yeah.
And all of the data post debate showed something like 70% of them thought Trump won. So, ergo, he won.
It's true. And there's people that have been on the left side that at first thought it was at least a tie, and now have revamped their statement and going, Trump did win. Trump did win. So I
Yeah,
don't
because
know.
their internal data is telling them that. And here's one other thing. And again, this is not, I don't
Yes.
want to take credit for this. I saw this somewhere else, another podcaster, but I thought it was a brilliant observation. He said, what was the one thing, a couple of things people walked away from? You know, it, no matter who you were, you walked away with this. They're eating the cats. They're
Oh,
eating
yeah.
the cats. They're eating the cats. How
And they're
could you
eating the dogs. Now it's a song.
yes.
And and
And
so many people fact check that now they got
uh-huh,
their eyes wide open going,
right,
"Oh, he
yes.
was talking the truth."
And that was brilliant because once again,
Yes.
this is a great thing about the media, the access to data now. People, they don't have to rely on these guys to fact check. They can go fact check themselves. And
Well,
anybody looking at what's going on in Ohio can see that they are doing that. And
yes.
and that's even besides the point. The larger point is this: they took a city of what 50,000 people and inserted like 25 or 30,000 Haitians into that city. So a 30% increase in the population from a group of people that is from a radically different culture.
Radically
On
different.
on what planet do you do something like that unless your objective is to destroy that city?
Absolutely. This is their cultures are so different. They don't speak the same language. Their cultures are so different, and um it is it's actually one of two nations I never went to in the Caribbean. And it
Oh,
was by choice. By choice. I told my husband, we're not going there because we met people an airline pilot and a couple of doctors, and they said, there's things you just frankly don't want to see. Well,
well,
the picture of the cats on the barbecue, that's a
mhm.
picture I didn't want to see. You can't unsee that. And it's there.
And here's the thing. I went and did now I did this before this happened, about 3 or 4 months ago. I was asking myself, because I don't really know much about the Haiti versus Dominican Republic. So
Oh,
it's an island, is shared by the Dominican Republic and Haiti. What's the difference? There is literally a fence right down the middle because the Dominicans want nothing to do with Haiti. They will not let any of them come in. Now you can't argue racism here. They're basically occupied by the same groups of people. It's
they're
just one
related.
group of people. Yep, they're related. So one country is run so horribly, and its culture is so terrible that the other side wants absolutely nothing to do with it and allows no immigration back and forth or anything. Now, the history of how they came to be that way, I don't know. I don't claim expertise there, but the
Mhm.
point is It's about as far from Western civilization as you can get, which takes me back to the whole Springfield situation.
Mhm.
There's no other way you could describe you if it was legal immigration and it was a small number of people, so you had a chance to assimilate them. That would be much more understandable. Say 50, maybe
Right,
100,
right.
but a third of the population. This is beyond. This is far darker than Democrats just getting, trying to buy votes. That's been the conservative cry for the last 40 years, right? I think it's worse than that. I think the objective is to destroy the United States as
I
we know
agree.
it. Uh,
I
and
agree.
this is how
It's
we,
absolutely destroying this community. You
yeah.
know,
And
when
we're
people I saw a video earlier today, and I don't know if everything on there is true, but it stands to reason. So different people from that area are talking about what's going on. They're going, yeah, our pets are disappearing, and and the jobs, they were brought in because of manufacturing jobs. So it's lowered the wages with these people working, displacing the American citizens that need jobs. And it's affecting housing, because where do you put all these people? There's those that are on low income housing, those that are on disabled housing. They're getting replaced by people from another nation.
and my
And
understanding is they're even blocking the job ads, so American citizens can't even see the ads. So they get the
what?
jobs first. It's just the biggest wow that you can
Wow.
imagine.
Yeah, and yet they wanted to hush this all up, but Trump brought it to the forefront in the debate.
Mhm. Yeah.
He because of what he said, and it's a big deal. It's a damn big deal.
Mhm.
I will tell you, I saw a story. This was in Florida, South Florida, about a horse. Now, I don't know that this is Haitians. I don't know who the people are there, but a horse went missing. The people came in. Somebody came in, cut the fence, took the horse out, and they found it a half a mile down the road slaughtered, and it was eating it for food. This is the family pet. People have horses for pets here,
Mhm.
and for pleasure riding, and treat them as a member of the family like we do our cats and dogs.
Now you can imagine, and I think the only way to explain this thing is you have to put yourself in the shoes of the people in Springfield. You do the same thing with people in New York City. They're doing the same thing in New York City. They're doing the same thing in Chicago. And suddenly a culture moves in, don't speak the language, radically different from your own culture, and doing things like this. And there's other things. There's cars just driving radically all over the place. So of course, getting in accidents, killing people, running people over on the sidewalks. I mean, the shoplifting and the crime is like just gone through the roof in Ohio. I saw a stat on it. I can't remember what it was. They were slightly above the national average in terms of crime, but it went up like by a factor two or three. After this,
Mhm.
after they dropped off these Haitians in the city. And what the left will do is accuse you of racism till the cows come home, because that's the card they love to play. Um, but they've just got to be ignored because the facts just don't support that. I can't believe how tolerant those people have been actually in Ohio.
Well, I don't know that they are. There's recordings, videos of the citizens at city council meetings talking about what's going on. And the recordings are getting released more and more of the citizens talking to the county commissioners, and what so the people that they've elected to represent them, that is allowing this to happen. And they allow it to happen, one, because of, federal funding. But Don, I have a question for you. These
Mhm.
people that are coming in, they've given their, I was listening to some commentator say, but they're not illegal. They have political asylum. They've been granted an asylum, a temporary one, albeit, for a certain a frame of time. Now they're given money, housing, probably a, uh, a credit card to buy food, phones. When the money dries up, when that spigot gets turned off, they will be the ones rioting. And we haven't seen rioting. We've seen Black Lives Matter. We've seen Antifa. This will
Those
be
guys are rookies.
because these people don't care about
Right.
us. And those people don't care either, quite frankly. But a lot
Right.
of those people are very spoiled, rich people's children,
Mhm.
as
Yeah,
we've seen.
they've never been in the fight. The minute the fight starts, they run away. But these people aren't running away. And to your point earlier, it's it's immoral and wrong what the government's done to do that. I don't know what legal, auspices they have chosen in order to do that. Um, but if they were asylum seekers, there's rules and laws associated with how you do that. I don't see anywhere we've ever taken like 30,000 people and dropped them off in one community. That cannot be right. And we've had an administration that's let just millions, pour across the border. But to take them and concentrate them in certain towns is obviously an objective. The objective is to destroy those towns. You often wonder if is this is like are they running an experiment with that to see what happens in a town if you do that? Um, you have to start thinking that way. They're looking to collapse. It's the one world government crowd, and the only way you get to one world government is if you can collapse the United States and make it weak like the rest of weaker than
Yeah.
the other countries.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a story that I've got here from PJ Media that over 100 of the Tren de Aragua gang members were part of the migrant group that charged the border in March. Remember when you saw all of those people charging an open place in the border and just started running through? So over 100 of those people were from the gangs. And I'll tell you, Texas is doing good things because they are now calling that gang has declared TDA a terrorist organization and announced a crackdown on them this past Tuesday, yesterday. Okay, yesterday. And
Mhm.
that's exactly as it should be. And so that gives them a whole different classification for Texas. Doesn't help them if they're anywhere else, but that Texas, they can just deport them right away,
Right.
and get them gone. But we're not. This is a gang out of Venezuela, and Venezuela, of course, is not helping us figure out. Give us a list of all these gang members. They're not helping us figure it out.
Right.
It's so you have to look at the tattoos and you have to look at other things. I don't know what. And it's sad the crimes that are being committed in our country because of all of this. And it is absolutely by design. It's absolutely to provide they want the chaos because when you have that chaos, the government says, "Oh, but we can fix it. We can
Yeah.
fix it. We'll
Right.
just take a
Yeah.
little more of your rights and we'll run a little bit more and we'll fix it."
Yeah, and this is precisely how Lenin, Stalin, and all the rest of them, had their way. They're just more sophisticated about it, this time around.
Yeah.
Um, so it's crazy. But one thing we both had talked about at the top of the hour was about this whole incident in Israel with the
Yes.
exploding pagers. Did you want to give a few factoids around that? I have some other thoughts on that too.
Well, I'll tell you, those pagers. So yesterday it was pagers. Today it's radios, two-way radios.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so that is something. That really is something because here you had yesterday like 5,000 people I read getting injured, 10 or 12 killed, and another 5,000 people injured, and some of them really bad. I saw, missing digits and some
Hmm.
pretty bad injuries, not life threatening, but life altering, some of them. And so they were trying to, what I read, trying to blame Taiwan. And apparently Hezbollah ordered these things months ago, 6, 7 months ago, from what I've read. And
Mhm.
I don't know who did all of this, but Taiwan did not build them. But it was in what country? What country built these things? Let's see. I don't remember. I'll see if I can find it. But another country built these and used under license of the
Mhm.
company that is in Taiwan.
Mhm.
And they're saying that some, I read 3 grams of explosives are added in there. But how do they program them all? I don't know, to go off at the same time. And then today it starts I watched a video of a funeral outside, and bam, there goes a two-way radio. And
Mhm.
so Hezbollah officials say walkie-talkies used by the group exploded across Beirut today. And
Mhm.
also, I read solar panels. Solar panels, Don.
I think we need to stay away from those solar panels. But
So apparently, somebody told Hezbollah, get rid of your cell phones, because you see that has GPS. They can do geo tracking with the cell phone, but when you use a walkie-talkie and when
uh,
you use a pager, there's no little GPS chip in there. So now
now,
it's like this group can't even communicate.
now, when I first saw this, I thought, Israelis, that's brilliant. Whoever came up with that strategy, which I'm pretty sure they did. I don't know who implemented it, but you have to like guess that they were, certainly behind that. But you have to stop and ask yourself, is this something that our government would weaponize and use against us? It's too
Yes.
bad you have to think that way, but look at what they've done with the media. Um, it's unbelievable what they've done with the media. Look at what they did with the vaccine, and the mandates. They
Yes.
weaponized all that against us. So you have to look at everything through that kind of a jaundiced eye, and you have to think that way. You have to think like it's unpleasant because the average American is a decent human being.
Yes.
But detectives have to learn have to think indecently to be a decent detective. And maybe they wash their brains out every night when they get home with soap and water. But I think we're going to have to be the same way. You can't walk around innocently thinking that people think like you,
No.
because clearly our government officials do not.
No, no, they do not. And this is ratcheting up. Oh, these apparently were, I found it, they're manufactured by a company in Hungary and under license of the Taiwanese company. That's why it had their logo on there. And it says, but made by a Budapest based BAC consulting firm. That's what the Taiwanese firm Gold Apollo said. And so that this company, is able to make it and under license of its brand, but they weren't involved in the production of the device. But this
Mhm.
is a military type of exercise planned out for months. So somebody says, yeah, you better get rid of your cell phones, because this is one of the ways they were targeting them to drop a bomb, right?
Well,
Boom.
yeah,
Oh, let's take out
yeah.
the head of wherever.
And see, we used to just laugh when people would say your phone's listening to you. But I think it's pretty well documented by now that we know that you can be tracked by your phone. And I've had marketing things come up with my phone after I mentioned a word. I don't think there's any doubt anymore about that. So this is like next level. And I did want to address this real quickly in the chat I saw between Marjorie and Pat. Excellent thoughts about who can you trust. Well, at the end of the day, in terms of government anyway, these are the reasons why our founders did not trust government. And that's one of the reasons why, because they don't trust the people who would lead government, because the worst among us are the type of people who tend to go into it. That's just the way it is around the world. So the only true answer to that is to keep government really small. Then you can minimize the damage it does, because it will do damage. You have to have it, but it will do damage. That's the nature of it. So you just have to minimize the damage by keeping it small. Um, that was the brilliance in 50 states. That was the brilliance in the separation of powers. The judicial, the legislative, the executive. That was the brilliance in it. Um, and we allowed too much money to flow into government. So because they got so much money, they can do a lot of damage. That's We got to get back to small.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Less government. So I'm reading this story as you were talking. I was listening to you, but reading this story. Apparently, the Israeli defense minister indicated that the Israeli military is diverting more of its resources north for a new phase of war. And a lieutenant general of the Israeli military's chief of staff said today that Israel's military has many capabilities that it has not yet activated. And so, is this Israel doing this? I don't know. It's suspicious that it certainly could be, because that's who is fighting this, right? And Hezbollah is fighting. They're one of Iran's uh, groups that is fighting in Israel and in Hamas. And so it's what a thing, So, what are the ramifications? Are we now going to have new things put on us in the airports because of this capability?
I don't know. I think we've been switched to bicycling.
I don't know.
it's it's ugly, and I saw there was a reporter who was trying to pin down Vance on supporting Ukraine. And I just
Uh-huh.
saw this mini debate, and he was just trying to get him to basically say you won't support Ukraine. When and I thought the answer was brilliant. The answer was basically, I don't support war. I'm going to end the war. It doesn't matter who wins or loses. Why are we supporting wars all over the planet? We didn't have any of this 5 or 6 years ago. And now we got wars all over the planet. Did you see and I thought this was another one of those funny things you see on the net. But when Kamala Harris had the audacity to say there were no Americans, serving in any combat zones anywhere in the world, they were videotaping these troops somewhere in the Middle East, and the troops said, "So where the blank? Where the blank are we?" They're sitting in a combat zone, listening to the vice president tell the American people that we have no troops in combat zones. I mean, the lying is so
Oh,
audacious, and the fact that she was not challenged on that in the debate. But people see this. Um, I think people see this.
I think they do too. And it's her line
I'm not willing to
in the
believe that
debate is
that
off
many
the charts.
Americans are that dumb. I just don't, which is why I don't believe the polling either. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, speaking of polling, today we're going to talk about elections a little bit. The Teamsters Union today makes no
are you
endorsement
there,
for the
Sonny?
president. But you know what's interesting? The polling in the Teamsters is that actually they are, it's something like I've got it here. Let me get to it. 58%, a poll that was conducted in the Teamsters Union from September 9 to September 15. Okay, a week. 58% of the members backed Trump and 38% favored Harris. That could be exactly how our election goes down. But it's amazing that the union will not back Trump. Amazing. And so I think they're pressured, very much pressured by the left, and the ABC organizations don't say anything. Because
Sure.
if you recall, the Teamsters Union president, he spoke at the RNC as well. He didn't say, he said, I'm not endorsing anybody here, but he spoke at the RNC. And so it's interesting about that. Now, I would like to switch a little bit to locally to Oregon, because in as far as elections, we've got DMV, and yesterday I did a deal about voter registration. Well, Christine Drazen, we've got DMV that has allowed, admitted that, oops, we've got illegals that are registered to vote, 306 of them to be exact. I still don't believe that for a minute. Well, Christine Drazen is asking for the legislators and the Secretary of State to pause the DMV auto voter registration and review the entire thing, because the failure, she says, this failure is too important to be swept under the rug. Oregonians deserve to know the full extent of the problem and which elections may have been impacted. And an independent audit must identify any additional ballots cast in previous elections by non-citizens to ensure the certified outcomes of these races remain untarnished. So I'm glad to see that. She actually said that yesterday. And, because we've got to, it's against federal law. And as I have heard people say, it is against state law. But I was told that it's not against state law for people to vote in our local elections. It is against law for them to vote in federal elections. That's why they have this thing called a HAVA ballot. That if
Mhm.
they don't know if this person is a citizen, they don't allow them to vote in a federal election. If somebody
Mhm.
says I'm wrong, show me where I'm wrong, because I've
Mhm.
seen it. And then also, I would like to say the Democrats even think Oregon Democrats have gone too far this time. And I went, wow. Well, the Oregonian said, the newspaper of record in Oregon, the Oregonian, noticed that there is a problem of the perpetual woke machines and the campaign election scandals. There's just too much, too
Mhm.
much. And so we've got to, I'm glad that there's more of this around here. In fact, the Oregon Catalyst first alerted this fellow Victoria Taft, who's writing for PJ Media, that to the abuse of the free election money scheme started by the Democrats for the Democrats, and in the Democrat city of Portland. And so what they're just, for example, and what the Democrats are saying enough is enough on is about the donations, the illegal donations that came from, what was that company, CTX, or,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
the FTX, the FTX scam. The Oregon Democrat Party's 22 elections coffers were part of that FTX scam. They knew where the hell the money was coming from, because the elections division director who previously served as the Democrat Party of Oregon's deputy director, Molly Woon, never
Mhm.
recused herself from oversight of the investigations. Her boss, then Secretary of State Shemia Fagan, who was both a heavy donor to and recipient of party contributions, agreed there's no need for her to recuse herself.
Mhm.
Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum, who's given more than 115,000 to the Democrat Party of Oregon over the years, it's this if you're donating, you can't be the oversight. If you're a donor to that party, I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican, you can't be the oversight. You must recuse yourself. And finally, Rosenblum finally did recuse herself from overseeing the case. And she did so only after election officials cut a deal with the party that slashed their fine from $35,000 down to $15,000. And also said, okay, we're not going to request a criminal inquiry. So the Democrat Party of Oregon maybe is fed up. I don't know. They should be.
Yeah.
They should be.
And well, the principle, and we made this point before. When you have one party rule, then where's the check and balance? And Oregon in general, and Portland more specifically, hasn't had that for 30 or 40 years. And we see the resulting decline in the quality of life in Portland. It's just become a miserable, unless you're in the upper end of the income scale, it's become a pretty miserable place to live.
Definitely. And a little bit more onto the voters, the voter rolls, and all of that. Arizona officials fined nearly 100,000 voters that didn't provide proof of citizenship. This is from the Epic Times, an article of today. And I mean, that's a lot. And I believe there's way more than 306 in the state of Oregon.
Sure.
And the RNC has asked the Supreme Court to reinstate Arizona's citizenship check
Mhm.
voting laws. And that law requires the people who register to vote in Arizona provide satisfactory proof of citizenship or residency to be eligible to vote. And, we always knew in Oregon that Oregon voters said, no, we're not going to give driver's licenses to illegals. But the legislators just went around the Oregon voters. And it's sad, 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 sad to see this happen time and time again, not just in Oregon, but in other states. That the governors or the legislators go, well, we'll just make an executive order. And I'll tell you, the Democrats don't care. I can
No,
see there's a lot of Republicans that don't care too. It's not just the Democrats.
no, that is true. The rhinos, they may not be as crazed, but the bottom line is those people like their jobs, they like their perks, and they like their benefits. And it's not about doing the right thing, not at all. And I think we've all had enough of one of the reasons why Trump is so popular is because he's not one of those. I mean, yes, he's in the Republican Party because where else are you going to go? But this party has produced a lot of turds the last few years. And I point to Citizen McCain, not Citizen Kane, Citizen McCain, as being the most recent one, and Romney and the whole lot of them. Uh, and that's why he's so popular is he's not one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'll tell you, he's the type of candidate I was waiting for my whole life, that I wanted to run for president every time. We always have people that promise the moon, kind of like, well, let's see, Comrade Kamala Harris is not promising the moon. She won't even tell you what she stands for. But, we have people that go, this is what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm going to do. Well,
And they
when you're
never do
running
it.
for, they don't. They
Right.
don't.
Mhm.
And in fact, I've got an example of that. Today, our Congress, the House of Representatives, passed Nancy Mace's Representative Nancy Mace, who is from South Carolina or North Carolina, South Carolina.
Mhm.
She drafted a bill, the chief sponsor for a bill, the Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act. And
Mhm.
the House passed it today, 266 to 158. 158 Democrats doesn't care about women in this country. They care more about illegals than the women in this country.
Yeah.
And so I looked up the voters of that. And when I say 158, there were 7 that didn't vote, 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats. I don't know why. Maybe they weren't there. Maybe they were out sick, excused. I have no idea. But there were 51 Democrats that voted with 215 Republicans. And the Democrats that didn't vote for it in Oregon, I bet you can guess who they are.
The usual
Blumenauer,
suspect.
the same suspects, Bonamici,
Mhm.
um, and Hoyle. Those were the 3. Those are 3 Democrats, 3 of the Democrats They voted no. And Cliff Bentz and Lori Chavez DeRemer, our two Republicans, voted yes to pass it. Now, for Washington, Jayapal, Kilmer, and Larson voted no. Those are the only three that I could find as I was quickly trying to look at the different voting. And the Democrats don't care. If they cared for our country at all, they would not, we would have a closed border. And
And these people they're probably in districts where there's no penalty for them for doing that. So
bingo, bingo, they're doing what their constituents want, right?
right. Sure.
And
Yeah.
but I'll tell you, had Cliff Bentz, there's voted against that. He's in a very conservative district. There is somebody running against him.
Mhm.
Do I still think he would win? Yes. But boy, oh boy, you have to remind people because people do tend to forget and we're not going to like all the votes. But this bill, I mean, who wouldn't want that? Who wants
Yeah.
to allow illegals to go rape women in our
Yeah.
country
In
and
this
still allow them
blizzard
to stay here?
in this blizzard of information that comes at us, I mean, think about all the things that have happened in the last couple of years. You can't even retain it. For example, has anybody even brought up what happened in Ohio with the chemical accident, for example? I mean, it's like there's so many things, or the Las Vegas shooting, or the gal who was out jogging and got killed by an illegal immigrant. I want to say at the University of Georgia, right? I mean, it's like the stuff's like old news instantly. So I really do think, and probably any good salesperson will tell you this, you can't have 10 different things that are most important. You got to pick two or three issues and you got to like just hammer those two or three. Immigration is clearly one of them. You got to give people something they can remember. Who did this to us? And well, we know who did this to us. On the immigration front, inflation. We know who did this to us. We weren't experiencing these things 3 or 4 years ago, right? And
No.
and then the wars. I mean, you take just two or three, and then you can spin off of those. You can even go to the cultural stuff too. Who's promoting chopping up kids without their parents' permission? We know who's doing that stuff. And there were no questions on that, by the way, in the debate either. Um, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You're right. And you do need to pick what is your passion and talk about it, because this is keeping it alive. Of we do know who's caused all this. The unrest in the world is astonishing. We are,
Oh,
I believe, so close to World War III.
oh,
Here
and
you
the thing
have
is,
Ukraine going, oh, give us long range missiles so we can go bomb the interior of Moscow. Are you kidding
this
me?
is it. The regular citizen in the streets in all the Western countries, they're pro-Trump. He's not even running for president. They're pro-Trump, and all the and it's their liberal intelligentsia who run their government are against the regular citizens. You can go Sweden, Switzerland, Holland, Netherlands, Germany, everyone, France, every one of these countries is undergoing a revival of conservatism because their governments are leading. Great Britain is leading them down the path of destruction and a lot of it's crazed immigration.
It
Start with
is.
that. Just outrageous immigration. It will destroy these countries. Will not survive another 10 years with the rate of immigration that they're getting, and they're ahead of us. I mean, we're such a gigantic country. We can absorb a lot more punishment than they can. That doesn't mean there's no limit. Nobody's too big to fail. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But you take a country like Great Britain. What do they have? Maybe they're a third the size. We forget this because we're so gigantic. We become used to it. So we don't think of ourselves as a large population country. For example, we have 350 million people. That puts us probably in the top 5 or 6. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, France and Germany, those countries, maybe 120 million. You can look it up. So you expose them to these crazy immigration rates, and they don't have oceans to protect them from it.
No.
And on top of that, they're getting the bulk of it from the Middle East, which is about as different from Judeo-Christianity as you can get. And you have got yourself a disaster. Um, we're not getting the degree of it that they're getting from a civilization that's completely and radically different. And this is easy to forget because a lot of us, we don't study or we didn't get the whole history of is history. The history of the West is one of Islam versus Judeo-Christianity. There's no getting around it. That's you know that went on for thousands, literally a couple thousand years, and it's back. And it's on their borders. It's the Crusades again.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And but we do have some good news, Don. I have a couple of good news things here. And um, the Kentucky governor is taking steps to ban conversion therapy for children.
That's awesome.
It is, but it's an executive order. And it's an executive order that I certainly support. And yet I was just critical of other executive orders. There's always two sides to this coin. And it's too bad that it's not the legislature to make it law, because an executive order is a temporary deal. But that's a good one. Another one is, and something that's not necessarily good news, but I thought I would bring it up. Did you heard that Gavin Newsom signed an executive order making artificial intelligent imaging and memes outlawed in California?
Wow.
And I'll tell you, on Twitter, on X, Harmeet Dillon, who is a champion of constitutional law, she said, "Bring it on." She retweeted that he had done this, and she said, "Bring it on." And I went, "Oh yes, oh yes." You can't do that. You can't do that. He can sign whatever the hell he wants. It's not going to stand up in a court of law.
Well,
It will for a while. It will for a while. And so this guy, Stephen Gring, says, "Arrest me. I just broke election law in California with this AI image." And it shows, Gavin Newsom, in a white wig and royalty robes, like he's the king of California here.
Well, he has been for a while. Well, and I'm like you though. Even though we've been talking about these terrible things that are going on, the silver lining really is the positive, and the positive is the American people have been awakened. And I think we've been asleep at the switch for the last 45 years. It took us getting hit. It took Pearl Harbor to wake us up then, and Biden has been our second Pearl Harbor. It took us seeing our kids getting chopped up, wars all over the place, illegal immigration swarming the country, fentanyl flooding the borders, college girls getting raped going for jogs across the campus. I mean, that's what has taken inflation up the wazoo, eggs up 55%. We weren't going to wake up, it seems, until somebody clubbed us over the forehead. I mean, there's a certain percentage of us that were awake, but not enough. And those of us who were awake weren't panicked enough to grab our neighbors and throttle them. And maybe they wouldn't have wakened up, but we didn't do that. So the good news is we know we have stage 4 cancer now. When you have stage 1 and 2, you don't feel anything. And let the les gens temps rouler, as the French, the Louisianans said, the good times roll, right? So now we got leaking, bleeding, ulcerating stage 4 cancer, but now we know we need to go get some treatment. And that's the good news is that's happening. People are waking up. I saw a number of high school girls teams across the country where they were just not showing up to play in these sports where there's men on the other side. I think that's awesome. They show up and turn around and walk up the court. That's how you deal with it. Forget about the legislators. Those people are corrupt. Don't rely on them. Just don't participate in their stuff.
Yes.
Don't buy their stuff. Don't buy Harley Davidson. Don't go to Target. Don't, that's how you do it. Act on our own. Yeah, we're gonna do everything we can to affect those organizations, but in the short term, don't participate in it. Don't send your kid to public school. Go down to the school board and raise hell, right? But strangle them where they feel it, first, which is their pocketbook. And we still have a lot of control. And I think the polling data, as weak as it is, can you imagine a candidate being picked on like Trump has been, and even with the worst polling data still being at 50%? That is like insane, which tells you just how, just the good news is it tells you how far we've come. And that's a good thing.
It is.
You can't treat the cancer till you know you got it.
That's fact. That's fact. You have to know. You don't know what you don't know, and
Right.
now that we know, we can do something about it. And it's so. Yesterday, I did a thing about registering to vote, Don, and I talked about the importance of don't worry of each one of us. Print. You can go and print out a voter registration form online, and put them in. Put a few in your car. All of us
Mhm.
should be talking to people if they're registered to vote and be ready to hand them a voter registration form and,
Mhm.
help them fill it out. Familiarize yourself on how to fill it out properly and help them and give them your number and say, "Hey, if you've got voter questions, give me a call." Make a friend with fellow voters because this is how we change America is by voting. We must. We must. Like
Yeah.
Trump's too big to rig.
Yeah, we can't live on no man is an island. We can't live by ourselves. There are a number of people who want to run away, but eventually it's going to come get you. So you can either do that, or you can participate in the change. Win, lose, or draw. Right? Let's participate.
Yeah.
Let's fight with words before we have to fight with arms.
I'm all for that. So the last thing that I have is Will Lathrop, and I'm gonna post it here in our audience has it, a link from Oregon Catalyst. And Will Lathrop, who is running for Attorney General for Oregon, he has launched a video highlighting the human rights work that he did in Africa. He helped reduce human trafficking by 36% in 5 years. And this video is very, very good. Get to know who is Will Lathrop. And this
Mhm.
is by people in Africa are talking about him and what he's done. And he had his Will and his team of 70 professionals prosecuted child traffickers, rescued child slaves from the fishing industry in Ghana, and resulting in 36% reduction in the number of trafficked children on fishing boats in just a 5-year period. The man knows how to put a team together. He knows how to build a working team, and he knows the law. That's only a small portion of what he's done in his life, and I want you all need to see it. So there's a link in our chat there, and we've got to do everything we can to help elect Will Lathrop as Attorney General for Oregon.
I love it. Fight the fight. Can you imagine a decent Attorney General for Oregon?
Oh,
That would be incredible.
it'd be
That would be,
huge.
yeah,
Yeah,
game changer.
it is a game changer. It is.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Don. This has been fun, buddy. We've gone just over an hour now.
I think, Sonny, we just set a new record. Well, audience, thank you all so much for joining us. It's a pleasure as always. I love my wonderful Wednesdays. I look forward to them. And afterwards, I take my wife out to Dairy Queen and I pass out on the couch. That's my routine. I'm not sure, Sonny, if you have a routine that meets that challenge.
Not tonight. Not tonight. I've got to go cook dinner.
Oh, real food. I
I do.
try not to
I
touch.
have to go cook dinner, but it's easy tonight. It's very easy.
I like it. Well, hey, everybody, have a great week. I'll see you next Wednesday and be good.
Yep. Like and share